I have.
There you go.
All right, call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Hold on. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Well, first, or the first real item of business here is the consent agenda. Recommended action, approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda: 5A minutes, 7A sports merger, 7B Essex County School Board Association resolution to dissolve and distribute funds, 7C special education, 7D donation acceptance, 7E resolution for disposal of personal property. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. One. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Colleen two. I like this. Any discussion? Not, then vote.
Seven yes.
Is for the good of the cause. Board of Education encourages public participation on school-related matters at board meetings to allow for public participation. A period not to exceed 30 minutes has been set aside at the beginning and end of board meetings. General rule: public participation will be limited to 5 minutes total per speaker. Anyone who wants to speak should state their name and sign up on the sheet. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak? Go ahead.
Okay. I have signed in. My name is May Chow, and I am here for good of cause. I'm presenting today to request that there be a reevaluation of the school policy that prevents children not enrolled in the Lake Placid School District access to a school dance and other social activities outside of the high school aged students, because they already have a rule, a policy in place for children that are from other schools coming in to a school dance. However, there isn't specifically one for a middle school dance. So it's a new family that just moved to the community of Lake Placid. Prior to that, we lived in Burlington, Vermont. And from my experience from having a child and being in a community, it never occurred to me that there were rules like this in place at a school. So when being a new family in the area, I'm always scoping out activities for my child to participate. She does not go to the Lake Placid School District school. She's a middle school child. We have chosen to send her to North Country School. But since that school is a little outside of the village, and most of the kids there are kids from out of state, out of town, we wanted to be a part of this community so that we can have friends and for her to have friends also. So she participates in lots of activities. So when I saw a post on Facebook, I think that's where, or on some type of social media, I'm not exactly sure if it was Facebook or a flyer or whatever, there was an invitation to the Lake Placid Middle School spring dance on social media. So I passed that information to my daughter. And so she talked to some other little 11-year-old girls that she's friends with from the community, and they made this plan to go together. I had no idea that this would be an issue. So she went with her friends and she was asked to leave because she was not a student at the school. So I have always taught my child that we are to include everyone. There's no reason to be excluding someone regardless of what school you go to, what your background is. And so, and that I keep instilling in her that we are part of this community. We should do things with the community and not isolate and segregate ourselves from our community. So when she was asked to leave, it was a very hard thing to explain to her that she wasn't allowed to go, even though she went with other children that were residents and students at the school. So it wasn't like she was on a date per se. And it kind of like, I understand that there's no child, you know, they weren't allowing any kids, but that should have been like posted when they put the invite out to the public. And also you're already like have this preconceived notion that all kids that are coming to these events are going to cause some type of trouble or mischief. I think that if there was a issue of safety or whatever the case may be, that if the parents are willing to sign a waiver or maybe have that post that known out there. I mean, there's not a lot of new families. I'm assuming that this hasn't happened because, you know, we've been in COVID for the past couple of years. And so there hasn't been like a public function like this at the school. And my daughter has been to the schools for like youth commissions, signing up for the outing club. So she's very involved in the community with NICEF and all the other things that she does. So for her and for me, I mean, I didn't even understand the whole concept of that. If we're part of the community, she's going with another friend, I think that at that point they should have reevaluated to see what the situation is. I mean, Lake Placid isn't a large community. I mean, according to Wikipedia, there's about 2,300 people in Lake Placid, and of that 2,300 people, 22.3% are families with children under the age of 18, which is a declining number, according to an article also that I read about the short-term rentals that they're trying to put a cap on, which they have. But I mean, I think that we should be inviting, to, oh, that was, okay, I'm done. Okay, so that was, I didn't know that was the timer, sorry. I thought that was a phone call. I actually thought that was a phone call. Okay, so I'll wrap it up in saying that thank you for listening to me, and hopefully you guys will look into this and maybe take this in consideration, because I believe that there's other kids that could be in the same boat, that are not only just at like another school like St. Agnes, North Country School, or even homeschooled. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Get an hourglass next time. The elementary school ones.
Yeah, that would.
It's surprising. I guess that's what that sounds like. I've never heard that before. So. Anyway, sorry about that. Thank you very much. Anyone else? And do we have any emails or letters? Telegrams. Thank you, everyone. So the next is information public. We don't.
Thank you, May.
Thank you, May.
Thank you.
Motion to waive public comment, so we don't have anything currently in information public. So that brings us to our presentations. First up is the Woods program presentation by Gracie Erickson.
To have us here if you want. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm like in the video.
Careful, it goes on YouTube.
Great.
If you want the mouse to advance the screen, you can. No pressure. I can do it for you. or-
I'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I've been sent to talk about Woods, which was a trip that I went on with 12 of the senior girls into the woods with Carolyn. as our guide. How do I do this?
I think it's the left click.
Yes, okay, so this is not really relevant. This was my senior project, so my capstone project, what I did for the end of the year. So pretty much the Woods program was a 4-day, 3-night trip into the woods on Chiota in March. So it was definitely cold, but 12 of the senior girls, so Carolyn presented us with this opportunity and I was super hesitant because I'm not a super outdoorsy person. And I was like, how could I possibly spend 4 days and 3 nights in the woods, literally having never camped before in my life, not even in the summer. So Mr. Clark presented, Carolyn and Mr. Clark both were like, you guys should do it. It's totally, it would totally be something that will be worth your time and a good memory. And so then one day we were like, I'll do it. And then it was a chain reaction of, okay, I'll do it if you do it. And then 12 of us signed up. A great thing about this program was free to students, so nobody was left out. And we were provided with absolutely everything we needed, except for base layers and wool socks, which nobody really wants to share, so that was good. So I would say the woods was definitely a transformative trip. Before the woods, I was always on social media. I was always worried about material items, stress, always on my phone. And I had like constant contact with the outside world, always focused on the news. None of us took our phones on this trip, which is definitely something I'm still proud of as a 17-year-old teenage girl who is I'm kind of on my phone a lot. So it was definitely nice to leave it behind and just be like, I'm gonna go be out with my friends. When I was offered this, I was worried about missing my phone, missing my bed, my shower, and food in the kitchen. So I was definitely a little bit nervous going into it. So how I felt at the start, definitely nerve-wracking. How was I going to spend 4 days in the woods, having never camped before? It was relieving. I did this right in the middle of my senior year, so it was nice to leave the real world behind and kind of set aside my college applications, my homework. Definitely a bittersweet trip. These girls have been my best friends and we're all going off to college or taking new paths. So that was definitely my key point in going was, I know this is going to be a memory that I'll cherish with my friends. And exciting. I was going somewhere new with all my best friends. So this is just day one. We leave our phones behind, we get on the bus, and I don't know where I'm going. I don't really know where on Chiota is. So all of a sudden we get there and we get all of our group gear and we start the hike. So it's winter, right? There's a lot of snow and it was deep snow. There's not a path, nobody's shoveling it. So we're walking and we're sinking into the snow, like this deep into the snow. And well, this would be something that I would typically be annoyed with, like, to get me out of snow. It was actually such a hilarious experience. And that's just a funny photo. We all brought disposable cameras. So we didn't have our phones for photos, but we had cameras. So that's just a funny photo. My friend Abby, like, absolutely sinking in the snow and everyone's like helping her. It was just funny. We were also learning throughout the trip about camping and being outdoors, and this is just one of the many examples. The brain of the bag, how to keep things dry, and how to balance the weight. Like, that's a big bag, right? But it, for some reason, was not super heavy because of the hip strap, and like that was a big bag. Looking back, I'm like, wow. This was also really good for my mental health this trip. It definitely taught me to overcome hard things, the tent being one of them. This was our little tent village that we made, and we were all looking for each other for help. I was really nervous about this trip because I would consider myself a pretty picky eater. It's like I'm not really branching out with my food. So when the first night we got there and I was like, I'm hungry, like, you're walking in the snow, you're carrying a big bag, you're tired. and it's Kraft mac and cheese. I was like, that's the most perfect meal I could imagine right now. So, Kraft mac and cheese. We had pasta with Alfredo. We had cheese quesadillas, oatmeal couscous. That was honestly me branching out. Like that was me branching out, and it was so good. And I just wrote at the bottom like everything does taste better in the woods. So here's the pictures. That's me having my Alfredo. Like very happy. And we had people cooking. So I've never really cooked over a fire until I was helping with the Kraft mac and cheese. After the first night, we woke up and it was like howling wind. It was kind of scary. And Carolyn surprised us that we were going to be going to the cabin. And like at this moment, it sounded like the most luxurious thing I could have ever imagined. It was not like it was not like a hotel. It was not like my house. But it was definitely more comfortable. We actually had like mattresses, like a fire. So it was definitely a hard walk to the cabin. This is me getting dug out by my friends after getting stuck in the snow. Again, just like a hilarious experience, even though I was like kind of in pain. But it was really nice to get to the cabin. We all took naps and like we had the fire. It was very cozy. So this was definitely the most transformative part of the experience was all the conversations we had around the fire every night. These girls have literally been my best friends. Like they're like the only people I know, it feels like. And we've just been friends since we were little, but without the distractions of phones, without the distractions of being in busy places, we definitely were able to get to know each other a lot better. And I would say that after this trip, like my relationships with my friends is a lot stronger. We had conversations about like kind of funny things, like the most embarrassing moments, favorite qualities of one another, insecurities, how they see themselves. Previous to this trip, my answer would be like, how do you see themselves? I'd be like, okay, I typically wear my little white sandals, my jean shorts. But now it was like, it was more deep. It was like, how do you see yourself? Like, how do I treat other people? How do I treat myself? How do I go out of my way to be nice? And that was just like really transformative to learn about how I see myself besides like my physical appearance. So there's just some cute photos of us around the fire and just having good conversations. Oh, left. Here's just a couple more photos of some different highlights, like when we had good weather, it was really nice. These were the mattresses we got to sleep on the cabin, actually pretty nice. We were just laughing the whole time. We weren't doing like any manual labor. Like there was no cutting down trees. Like it wasn't about like the survivalness as much. It was more about like learning to be in the woods, but also like learning about one another, learning about oneself. But we were just laughing the whole time. This is Goose. That was my favorite, the only dog, but Goose was a real one for that. When we came home, I was definitely excited to get back to my routine. We were all kind of like, that's like literally jumping for joy. It was definitely exciting to come home, but the one difference I'd say I wasn't like, I can't wait to like go on my phone. Like, I can't wait to like scroll on Instagram. There was none of that. It was like, I can't wait to like see my mom. So at the end, this was one thing I wasn't really expecting. I was like, I felt grateful to have embraced where I live. Like I grew up here, but never been camping before. So it's nice to have that aspect of this has been surrounding me. And now I'm kind of like giving back to it. I was relieved to be home and take part in the things I love and see my family again. I was relaxed. I was calm and realized how well I can do without the distractions of daily life. I was ready for my next adventure. As I go off to college in the fall, I felt accomplished. How did I do that? I was proud of my friends, and I was so excited to see all the pictures after we had to wait to get them developed, which is also not for me. Some of the lessons I learned, if things don't go according to plan, accept the change, like waking up the first night, howling wind, kind of uncomfortable. We get to go to the cabin. Listen well, regardless of how long you've known the person, just putting down the phone and learning about them. I definitely will take that skill when I go to college and I'm making new friends. Help others. Everyone's will struggle, whether it's their mental health or their tent. Make the time to help and laugh even when things are going wrong. just not take it too seriously. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Like, this is definitely going to be something that sets me aside from people that I meet in college. Nobody's going to have gone on a camping trip for 4 days in March. That's just not going to happen. I'm so grateful to have these memories with my friends. We still talk about things. We're like, sometimes when we'll have like a quesadilla, we'll be like, this kind of reminds us of woods. And I definitely have a further appreciation for my bed and the food in my kitchen. Thank you.
Grace, just before you go.
Yes.
Grace is an amazing ambassador for families, for our district, our community. Grace was awarded the Volunteer of the Year Award at Community Day for the youth, and she is just astounding. So you will be sorely missed.
Thank
here.
you. Thank you
I
so
know
much.
Your parents are very proud of you, and they're right to be. So this is just a small token of our appreciation for all that you
Thank you so much.
do to promote the values that
Thank
we're
you.
proud of here in Lake Placid.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any
you.
questions?
Are you all set to sign up for Survivor now?
I'm starting up the gun.
Really nice presentation that you gave us.
Thank you.
Kind of have like for 4 days. And I do have to say, it must have been hard initially not to have that phone.
Yes,
when teenage
definitely.
Girls are going like this, it must be really difficult.
Yeah.
but good
I,
for you
I
guys.
started looking for it on the bus. I was
Yeah.
like, it's in my dresser at home. I don't need to
Yeah,
look for
great,
it.
great. You guys and those two instructors.
This is Carolyn Walton. She's the founder of the Woods program and our partner. So Carolyn, thank you for coming out and being a strong supporter.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, great program.
It is.
Grace, you don't need to be polite. You can leave and enjoy your last day. of teaching with them if you so
Thank
wish.
you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Here.
So, yeah.
Should say that because Nolan and I were talking this afternoon, and she has graciously offered. First of all, we think that it would be great if the board was able to go out and see where this
Yeah.
facility is, because it is an amazing facility. But also to maybe spend a little bit of time there as a retreat, because I know, Colleen, that you've always been looking for a place. Not that you don't have a nice good experience, an around the fire type
Yeah.
retreat.
I was at Parks Fire, but this whole glamping thing is opening up.
But the cabins are actually pretty nice.
Yeah, no, it
The
sounds
pictures
awesome.
she took didn't do it justice, but
Yeah,
you
that
can
would
have
be great.
a female cabin in it.
That's awesome. We'd love to do that.
And yeah, when we spoke about it today, I thought there's no chance that we get you all to do that. And when I look around the room and just knowing some of you, I think it would just be really powerful. A lot of people are like, well, what do you do out there? What does the day look? And it always makes me smile because it's so hard. Like Grace did a wonderful job. And to go out and just experience 24, 48 hours without the blinking and beeping and flashing
Yeah.
as a unit, it would be really great. And I'd love to do that pro bono just so the board members can see it. Yeah. And the cabins are really great and they're wood stoves and we would certainly like uptick, anything that y'all need to make it happen.
So
I mean,
We got for mac and
when I
cheese.
first-
We can steer the food into a little bit
I was
different
gonna say,
direction.
when I first met you years ago, and you were talking to me about this dream about doing this, and then seeing it come to really happen, and then seeing kids at school, I'm just like, wow, that was just amazing.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, if I may have 2 minutes, I would like really love that. One, I just need to give my hat off to Tim and Teresa, who just like spoke to Tim and then spoke with Teresa, and getting the support from the administration here. It was just amazing. And I typically do share this with people that Teresa's had a son that went through wilderness therapy, and that's my background. I spent 700 days over the last 10 years in the wilderness with kids from 12 to 22. And it's catered toward, it's $430 a day. It's very, very expensive. I came from a public school out of Syracuse, and I thought I really want to get this into the public school setting because all kids can just benefit from time in nature without their phones. The biggest thing right now. My twin sister coaches lacrosse for D1 school in Virginia, and she just thinks like they're all like wild, wiry kids because their technology addiction is just so real. So if we can like root that into the public school district and provide kids that opportunity, it really makes an impact. And I hope that you all will come out and experience it. You, the president, Danny Cash, I think you just said I'm down, or you said I'm
Yeah.
in, yeah.
I mean, like, how far away is it? Do we just go now?
Throw your weekend plan. Yeah, yeah, but like, actually, like, locking some dates, it's a 34-minute drive from this building. Paul Smith owns the property. I saw a moose out there once. It's beautiful. It has that backcountry feel with all the safety nets that I think are, securing.
And an evening barbecue.
Yeah.
There.
Well, if Karen puts it on the board calendar, we just automatically show up wherever the calendar invite tells us to go, so.
I would put a plug in. It's like one thing, it's one thing to go out for an afternoon in a couple hours, and it's another thing to spend a night and a day.
Oh, it's gotta be 2 nights.
I mean, I don't want to push that, but 2 nights would be great. They say it takes 3 days, 3 days of nature without technology to have a full reset. That's like what the data says. So if you're open to 3 days, 2 nights, that would be fantastic. And all you need are base layers and socks. Reset. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think you two will have to come back. We'll make an allowance. All right, next is our presentation of the LPES literacy program.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Carol.
I brought drugs.
Just a moment.
No, you're all good.
Is that workable for you?
Yeah. Of course, yep. Don't even need my glasses that way.
Here's the mouse if you so wish, or I believe you should be able to use the mouse.
Use it. Be able to use it now. All right. Okay. Tim had asked us a little over a month ago to talk about the science of reading. Apparently it came up during a board meeting. So my cohort Carmen here and I put together a little show, just to talk a little bit about what it is. For those of you that don't understand or don't even know the basics of it, what you see here is what's called Scarborough's rope, which talks about the different components that are involved in learning to read. One of the key things that blew me away, I have a master's degree in childhood development. So the way the brain works and learns has always been interesting. And it really focuses on that. The idea that children naturally, they understand they naturally gravitate and learn oral language, the spoken word. That's why we talk to kids all the time. That's why having a child exposed to as much oral language initially as possible is so important. Likewise, children also naturally have a part of their brain that works with visual images. That's why everybody says have the mobiles there and have the child, 12 inches away so that they can see you, all of those aspects. But the thing is with the human brain is there is no natural pathway between those two parts of the brain. So there's nothing that associates the spoken word with that visual component, which we know is what reading's all about. So we have to build that. We have to build that bridge between the two, which is what the science of reading really talks about. It really talks about adding together the language comprehension piece and the word recognition and how to go about that. The best analogy I could come up with to describe it, which seems to hit home, is a stroke victim. Stroke victims oftentimes will in their mind know what they want to say, but not be able to produce it. Or likewise, the opposite is happening. It's because something's happened to that connection between the two. So the only reason to build a connection, or only way to build that connection, is to continually expose those two aspects and associate them together. which requires a very explicit instruction. So, we can learn that this isn't glasses, but we don't understand that that's GLASSES. That's the part that we really need to go through with this, the science of reading. One thing, and I know you can't see those from here, these little charts I found really interesting is when you look at the knots, which you're not supposed to do, it's what we currently do. So.
And not just us.
Yeah.
Everyone around the country. This is not a Lake Placid thing. This is the entire country has been teaching like this forever. Because we all bought into, we need to have this balance of literacy. And what we're finding is that it doesn't work. And the people who started the science of reading in the 1960s are going, told you so. Like, but somehow the publishing companies never really listened. Right. And so and then the balanced literacy came around in the 90s. It was like, oh, this will fix everything. And we'll do a little bit of phonics and we'll do a little bit of this other type of work and we'll balance it all out. And now it's just not working. And what it's truly not working for are your low income students and your students who come in with absolutely no background knowledge. And if you think about our population, that's the majority of our kids.
People talk about that pendulum swing. We went through phonics, whole language, and isn't this swing going to swing back? It isn't a swing between two programs. The thing is, our brains are not going to change how they develop. And that's what this is talking about, is that development. We were also asked what skills were required.
Yep. So these are the big ones. So it is phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is your ability to hear spoken language and break it down from a word to a sound. Decoding, that's your ability to look at letters, know that this letter makes this sound and these letters together are going to make these sounds together. Sight recognition, those are all of your, what we call sight words, but sight words are trick words and they eventually become the same thing because a trick word needs to become a sight word. You all, as adults, process text when you are reading. Everything to you is a sight word. And you process text, each word at 1/20th of a second. It takes you to process that text. But you know the difference between elaborate and elephant, even though they both start with an E, because you're looking at every single letter. And when you teach in a balanced literacy way, which is what all of us across the country have been teaching, is you look at the first letter and now you look at this picture. And you're going to guess this word. And what they found out is that that's actually what poor readers do. And what we need to teach children to do is to focus on the print, moving from the left to the right all the time. And it is a very systematic process, and it is very explicitly taught. And so to some people, it sounds like, oh God, we're going back to Dick and Jane and Spot, and like, this is going to be awful. And the whole thing has changed, and I have learned so much in the past year. Just looking at the science of reading, I was taught by one of the gurus in the country. Irene Fountas was my professor at in graduate school, and she created the entire A to Z leveled program and all of that goes along with it. And I helped in that entire process. So that's what I brought to Lake Placid. That's how we've been teaching for the past 22 years. And now I'm looking at it going, oh, yeah, that was so wrong. So people are like, oh, so we're learning something new. I'm like, you have no idea how new this is going to be. It's very, very different. So anyway, sight recognition, we're looking at how do we teach trick words differently. So just for example, the word they, right? So we'll do it. You'll be my teachers. You'll be my students, right? So we're going to start with the word they. So everybody say the word they. Very good. And sound it out. Ready? Go. A. How many sounds are in it? Two. Two sounds. What are your two sounds? A. Right? So if I had a board, I would show you. Right? If we put two boxes on it. Is what letters? TH. Good job. And A is what letter? Don't tell me EY. A is A, right? And so that is how Colleen and Joni, I'm sure you've seen this, right? How many kids write THA, right? So we are teaching them that the EY becomes what's called a heart, because you need, as my little kindergarten goes, you need to know it by heart. Yes, that's right. Then I remember it. So that's when I come up with songs and we sing. But it's those, like, you are truly mapping all of these words. And if you do it correctly and you do it systematically, the kids will learn it that way, instead of, here's the word they, what is this word? They, what is this word? They, like it's that flashcards that we all didn't learn our multiplications that way, but like I truly did not, this way of learning is so easy for me. It would have helped me so much, but I didn't learn this way. I learned the whole language way. Actually, I never learned it. I just cycled through because I was cute. My mother was the president of the board. And so they just kept moving me through elementary school. Background knowledge is our other big piece. We have kids who come to us and they've never experienced anything, and they are not read to at home, and they don't have this background knowledge that we're really expecting kids to come with. And so along with teaching the phonics of it, you are also exposing them to high quality literature where we are reading to them. We're not expecting them to read and learn. We're expecting them to listen and learn, because your listening comprehension does not catch up to your reading comprehension until you're 13 years old. And that's way past our building. My son is 13 and he's finishing 7th grade. So now his reading comprehension and his listening comprehension are the same. But we have been teaching our youngest kids, read this book on trucks. Now you're going to tell me everything you know about trucks. If you have a whole bunch of background knowledge about trucks, and that is the one book on the F&P that everybody passes because they all know about trucks.
Right.
But you
We have
give
tons of
them,
trucks.
right? But you give them the one about the manatees. Like they have no idea unless they've been to Florida and run one over with a boat. So like it's that kind of background knowledge that you expect our kids to have it, and we don't have it. So we're looking at how can we add that to our students. Vocabulary is a big one.
Vocabulary, and what have we been doing in order to increase math and ELA scores? We've been cutting out science and social studies. And that's where a lot of the vocabulary will come from, is from those two aspects. So looking ahead at next year's, which I'm jumping a little bit, schedule, we did make sure that we blocked out specific time for science and social studies, because it's just always been this push for math and ELA. Those are the two things that are tested. So those are the only things we have to worry about. So we've really been doing them a disservice with vocabulary. Likewise, grammar. Grammar is a high school thing. You don't need to know grammar when all you need to know is where the period is and how to capitalize. And that's been pretty much it for elementary. The idea that you would get into the more details of the grammar as you get older. But we're looking at now teaching root words, suffixes, prefixes, all of that type of thing, which historically has been in the high school. So that's been a difference. So talking about the shifts. We've started some shifts and we've got some shifts ahead of us.
Yep. So this year, our kindergarten and our first grade, I'll just go through like all. So our kindergarten and our first grade and I purchased it for 2nd grade as well, started what's called Heggerty. Heggerty is a phonemic awareness program. It runs for 10 to 15 minutes every single day. It's all hand motions and cheering, and like to watch it, it's hilarious. When I tested the kids in 1st grade last year, at the end of last year, who would have, you're supposed to have all of your phonemic awareness by the end of 1st grade. Our kids didn't have it. And that's when I was like, okay, that's it. We gotta do something about this. And now our students have, do we have that?
That comes later.
That comes later. Okay, so I'll show you that later, but anyway, it does make a difference. So we are now doing Heggerty every day, kindergarten through 1st grade. We have gone back to Foundations. And I say gone back because we purchased that when I was pregnant with my son, Will. I remember because I would leave the training, puke, and come back in. And so Will, so that was 13 years ago, and everybody was using Foundations K3, and we really saw some success with it. And then we had some administration changes and things got changed around, and it is what it is. We're moving back towards it. So this year, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, all taught Foundations. Next year, that will continue through 3rd grade, which is huge. And we are changing how we teach sight words. So I just showed you a little bit of that. The other big change is decodable text. So all of our text right now in our youngest grades is you can basically memorize it. And if you ask, especially our boys, to read this book, I see a kitten, I see a cow, I see a lamppost, I see, they figured out the I see. They can point, sort of, you give them I and C and something else and they can't read it. Then I gave them a decodable text and they were like, what's this? Because all of a sudden the words, you really had to sound them out in order to make meaning and to be successful with it. So we are looking at decodable text. We purchased them for all kindergarten students, our first grade struggling readers in tiers 2 and 3 also use decodable text this year. We started to see some really great progress with that. And the decodable text will go along with what you were teaching in phonics. So in balanced literacy, you would teach this phonics lesson and you would never have a chance to practice that phonics skill. And the only way you get better at doing something is practice it, right? So if we're expecting them to read it, but then we give them something else that they don't then practice sounding out the words, they're not going to get it. So we are switching to decodable text. Then I have this book. We purchased this for everybody last year, How to Plan Differentiated Reading Instruction. This is the K3 version. The 4.5 is sitting on my desk at school because I'm still working with it. And then this becomes all of our RTI, so our response to intervention program for next year for tier 3 and tier 2. This is nothing but decodables. And when you think about decodable text, it doesn't necessarily have to be a full book. It can be just a short passage and a whole bunch of words. So I've taught it all year with my youngest students and I absolutely love it. They love it. Are you timing us? Is it 1 minute? Can I have an hour? No, just a minute.
The big difference between that is it doesn't rely on the picture.
Yeah, there's no
We've always
pictures
been
in it.
telling the kids, look at the picture, that'll help you figure out what the word is. That's the wrong thing. We haven't been asking them to look at the word, we've been asking them to look at the picture. So it might have a kitten on there and the kid says cat and you're, okay, good. What did you just teach them? So that's the difference between the decodable text and the rest.
Well, can I say a quick question before I forget? So when you were talking about, like, with Will, that the reading and the comprehension doesn't catch up until they're 13, do you have to change your assessment? Because if, for example, in second grade, they're reading a paragraph and they have to answer questions, but the comprehension isn't there, will the assessment have to change?
Correct. So our assessment is changing. Yes. So our F&P boxes, the Fountas and Pinnell level literacy intervention boxes that I love and help develop are going to be packed away. And we are changing them. Yeah. So it will all be decodable text that students are going to be assessed on. Yep. And it will be at grade level. So at a first grade decodable text, how much can you read in a minute? At a second grade decodable, how much can you read in a minute? That's, yeah, yes, that will change. Oh, here's my data. But I can't read it. I gotta come over here. In the winter, 25% of our students were proficient in phonemic awareness in kindergarten. And then in the spring, 51% of our students were proficient in phonemic awareness. But remember, I told you phonemic awareness doesn't end until the end of first grade. In the fall, 8% of our students were proficient in the fall, and now 69% of them are proficient in the spring. So those kids who are not proficient yet are going to get a little bit of extra help in second grade with me and with the other teachers who are teaching tier 3. 70% of our kindergartners are now proficient in nonsense word fluency. That we haven't seen that number since my daughter's class was in kindergarten. And that's when we were doing more foundations. Our tier 3, so you always want the green to grow bigger, and that's exactly what happened this year in kindergarten. 20% of our kids were in the red. No, 20% of our kids were in the green and 62% of our kids were in the red. Red means you need to come and see me and be in some very intensive, get some intensive work done. And then in the spring, tier 3 was, am I reading that right? Yeah, the
There's a plus sign
20%.
too, or if you want to zoom in.
Oh,
and
yeah,
welcome
that's
to-
it. And that's 73. So we have 73% now. in the green.
Kindergarten is the one grade
went
level
from
that we did it
20%
with
to 70%.
Fidelity too. They were our guinea pigs this year.
Yeah, they were. They did a nice job.
First grade was a mixed bunch.
This shows the percentage of proficient students in all of the 8 different ways that we assess integrity for learning. So. Yeah,
So are we the only district right now that you know of, or kind of in our geographic area that's going in this direction? You know, or
I'm not sure. I know that Tim sent the 2 Breeze and I to Boston Spa last spring to see what they were doing, because they were doing exactly this, and it blew our minds. We've never seen anything like it before, and that's when I really started to really dig deeper. I've always been interested in the science of reading because I've always known that phonics is the way to go. And then when I saw that school districts were getting sued by parents for not teaching phonics, and that was way before COVID, I started to get really nervous. But it wasn't happening. But yeah, I'm not sure, like, I don't know what Saranac Lake is doing or Keene or anything. But I do know we are heading in the right
Can I
direction.
ask the questions?
Yes, sir.
So is it an important point going from 2nd to 3rd grade, the fundamentals of reading? Is that a critical juncture at that age?
What do you mean?
Well, with moving into 3rd grade, what percentage of our kids are proficient? Going
Right.
into 3rd grade.
Right now, I don't have those exact numbers, but I'm expecting that number to jump after next year, because they will have so much more phonics in their year during the 3rd grade year. They haven't had that in the past because they were focusing a lot on vocabulary, and then we had an administrator, no one in this room, but we had an administrator tell us that phonics doesn't have to be taught after 2nd grade.
Is it fair to say
That's
that
what we
this moving toward the science of reading methodology, we're committed to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Especially with what we saw in kindergarten and even 1st grade. We had one teacher that did it with Fidelity, one that kind of dabbled, and the other one was kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm buying into this. And those test results,
That brings me to my question. Can I
Show
just
right
ask you
here.
Before we move on. So the individual teachers have the discretion to do what they want in terms of,
this year was kind of our trial year.
what about next year?
Next year, we're all going to be doing the science of
Okay.
reading.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'll be
It's
teaching
hard to mandate something when you don't have the proof. And this year we
I
developed the proof.
understand.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
As an attorney, you understand, you
I
need
understand
evidence.
that.
Right, you gotta have that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have it though.
Yeah.
Yes, we have it.
Yeah.
We have it.
wanna-
Yes. So moving forward, we're going to continue to get the decodable text, not just for kindergarten, but working our way up through the system, 1st grade, 2nd grade, it's that as well. We are doing our first introductory PD on the 22nd. So we've kind of got a captive audience. Our staff is not free yet, but you have to be at school. So guess what? We assigned you something. So Laura will be presenting on the science of reading then, just as an introductory, a little bit more detail than what you're getting now, obviously a day's worth, but just kind of getting people involved in it. The 2 of us are continuing to educate ourselves.
We're doing this one.
Yep,
this
the
summer.
shifting of balance this summer.
We'll be on our computers all summer.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Possibly. on
But the thing is, we're going to need to keep doing PD because this is a complete 180 for teachers. This is a college curriculum. This is not just a workshop. It's a whole course. It's learning how to reteach something. And historically, teachers aren't, or pre-service teachers aren't really taught how to teach reading unless you're a reading teacher. So everybody's got that general. So
We have
we're
a lot of
really,
work.
yes, we've got a lot of work to do, winning the crowd over as well as preparing them and pacing ourselves so that they're not overwhelmed and just give up. Because that's an issue that we sometimes will get to, that fatigue that's going there.
Can I just say something?
Oh,
about
yep,
that? Yeah.
yep. You want to back that?
I had some interesting conversations with the teachers at Boston Spa. They went as a district wide. Everybody's doing this, and they have 3 elementary schools, I believe, there. And the one that we went to see had gone all in. Everyone had done all of the professional development. And then there's another school where they'd gone all in, but then they had kind of strayed away from it a little bit, and they were not as successful as the one that we saw. When we're talking about professional development, it's like 3 years worth of professional development. Because in order for us as teachers to explain this to kids and to teach this to kids and to be successful with it, we truly have to know exactly how this whole thing works. And one of the ones I know, Kinderhook New York is doing this one. It's called Letters, and it is a 3-year commitment, and it's like 3 years of college all over again on top of all these other things that people are doing. But it is one of the best professional developments out there. We're looking at what can we do next, where, because you literally cannot, I cannot tell the teacher, take everything you've ever learned, chuck it out the window, replace it with this. First of all, it's going to cost us way too much money. And second of all, because you just have to have that buy-in from it. And when you see it working with kids, that's when you get that buy-in. And I just kudos to the kindergarten team for just being like, okay, Laura, we're gonna do
They
it.
were skeptical.
They're like, I can't believe you're taking these books away from us. You just bought them for us. I know I can't either. Don't talk to me about it. Just give them to me and just try these instead. And they did. They jumped in both feet. And we met every week, but I was with them every week planning for everything. It's like, okay, what are we going to teach next? This is, how are the kids doing? Which kids can we shift? And so it's a lot of collaboration and a lot of professional development for all of us.
Can this board do anything to assist in that professional development?
Yes.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Okay,
Literally.
I hear you.
Yeah.
The families must be really pleased with the results. The year has come. Starting to be and
Yes, I have one very specific, but I have one third grader who I just went all out with this for 45 minutes a day. And her family was blown away with what this kid could read, because at the beginning of the year, she would pick up a book. She was like, I'm not doing this. I don't want anything to do with it. And then she wrote a note. My daughter picked up a book for the first time and sat on the couch and read it for 20 minutes by herself. I mean, mom was like in tears because she finally was successful, but this kid worked her butt off to get there. And I worked my butt off with her too. So, but but that's what we're going to start to see. I have some fabulous videos of the kids reading, and you never thought this kid would ever read the second 200 words on the Fry list, which are though, thought, although, those all look the same, and he's with it right through them without a problem. So it's been super exciting. And I'm such a
That's great.
nerd. I
That's
love
great.
it all.
That's great.
But yeah, it's fun.
And the last question we were asked to answer was, how will they change the student experience? The big, oh wow, 100 shift for me was I've been taught that, things have to be student-centered. Let the students make choices. Let the students be the ones that are doing the majority of the talking. A teacher gives a mini lesson and then the students go out and do. This is the exact opposite. This is teacher-led because it is so explicit in instructions and it is so systematical. There's an order that which things have to go. So that's completely different for the kids, for the teachers, and for some of the parents out there. That's a huge shift for them, is having that teacher really, really push it and guide it. The other one would be that emphasis, as I talked earlier about the Greek roots, the suffixes, the prefixes, that background knowledge, getting that information to them. More read alouds that are scientific nonfiction, so that they can acquire that background language. I remember back when I was still teaching, so 10 years ago plus, I remember a ELA exam that talked about a family and they were out on their stoop. And one of the questions was, what does a family do on the stoop? The kids had no idea. I came from Amish country. We had porches and we had lawns. We didn't have stoops. We didn't know what stoops were. My kids bombed that. It wasn't because I was a poor teacher, I hope. It was because the vocabulary wasn't there. So we really need to expose kids to a variety of vocabulary.
So how close is this now to, say, Hooked on Phonics? Is it taking bits of that? Is it completely different?
It's a piece.
It's a piece of that.
Phonics is a piece of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think when I first jumped into the science of reading, I was like, I know this. You know, we all think we know everything. Right, so I know this. I know, oh, wait a minute, this is way more than just the phonics piece. There's 5 pillars of it, and you really need to be an expert in all of them in order to teach it well. But I think the choice part is so huge, because when I first came to the district, I was like, oh, we're gonna let kids choose their own books. And they're just gonna have a great time, and I'm just gonna expose them to all of these books, and they're gonna be great. And it's worked great for my own kids, because we have thousands and thousands of books at home, but that's not our population. That's as much as I give kids books, and if your kids have come through the district, you know, I've been handing them books every year, but that's not what we have. And it seems to be getting worse because everybody's on a tablet or a phone. That's right. All the time.
And that's one thing that Laura and I both agree on, the programs that we're looking at, we are not finding ones that are computer-based.
I will not
Good.
do computer-based.
They have
I
enough
cannot
time.
do it. They have enough time on screens. We gotta give them paper and pencils.
Great.
So, any other questions? We can take our book and go in the woods if you want.
I don't know if it's ever related, but my second grader has recently started to insist on reading her own bedtime story. Not sure how I feel about it right now,
Yeah,
since
yeah.
she's the youngest, but it's.
She has to read it to you.
There we go.
prove she's
That's
reading.
maybe compromise.
There you go.
There you go.
She might get to the point where my 13-year-old is, well, Mama, all I want to read is Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, no, I'm just gonna sit and read this book to you, and then 2 chapters in, okay, I'll take this now. Like, I will read it on my own.
Well, just thank you.
Before you both go, thank you both so much.
Yep.
Not just for this, but for leading this charge, really before there was even a lot of notoriety with it nationally. And in doing so, facing some very tough questions from some very well-established staff who do an amazing job for us, but have grown so accustomed to the way it's been done. And you've taken the brunt of some of those difficult friction-based conversations, and you've both done it with grace. So thank you for
Thank you very
continuing
much.
to do that work.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And I'll be presenting in the library on Thursday morning. If you want to come. Can't guarantee I have enough copies for you, but you can see the dog and pony show.
Thank you very much. Next is our reports to the board. First up is the budget performance. report.
Okay, so you have 2 documents. The first one is the standard, budgets comparison, end of the month. And then the second one is an up-to-date. I really want to just focus on the second one because it's kind of like the,
Ready here.
yeah. So the first one is kind of that normal you get. It shows you that for the end of May and the breakdown and the projection. I want to give you guys the up-to-date as of this morning details, because looking at it this time of year, looking at it a couple of weeks ago, yeah, it's all old news. This is, basically looking at as of today, as of this morning at 8:30, where we are. Most of our big expenses are in. The last payroll for the year happened on Friday. So this is trying to give you guys a better sense of where we are and what's left in the budget. So we're not going to see a $900,000 surplus. I can promise you that. So we'll start off with, if you look at it, the revenue year to date, this kind of gives you a comparison from all the different items. Property tax is just that. It's our property tax. Just about $16.7 million. Other tax items, this is like interest on our property tax. So when people don't pay it and then the county gets involved and then they get the money, we typically will gain interest off that. So however long it takes, they pay us with interest. Charges for services is just that, it's the rentals and things like that. That's we have various entities use the use of money. That's our interest, and you can see a huge difference there. Last year, this time, we only had about a little over $19,000 in interest. We're sitting at over $200,000 in interest for the year. One of the positives too the current economic climate that we are in is the fact that higher rates of returns. Granted, we're paying more for just about everything, so it offsets it, but we are generating some good use of interest. Miscellaneous, that is really just that. It's donations, it's things that come in. That isn't necessarily marked specifically. It's not state aid, it's not federal aid, it's not interest. It's just the money that comes in on an annual basis. It all adds up. State and federal aid, 3.3 at this point. Last year, 2.7. That's the one area where we still have some outstanding revenue at this point. We kind of have a sense as to what that's going to be, but we typically don't get the rest of our state aid until the summertime. So even though the year is ending in the next week, we won't get money until probably August, even possibly September. That will kind of make us whole from the state's perspective. A good portion of that is tied to our BOCES aid that we get. We get it directly from BOCES, and we're waiting to hear back as to what is that actual amount that we are, so that we can actually put it in as a receivable. First time that we've used the appropriated fund balance. This is exactly what we budgeted, 669, 662. We budgeted that, and we're using it. My 10 years in this district, 5 years in this position. It's the first time that we've actually have had to use that. We've in previous budgets, it's been built in, but it's always been sort of like a placeholder. But I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm actually saying it as a positive because we have to use our fund balance. I mean, that is one of the things, the auditors just left last week, and we'll be getting a report sometime in the future. And that's one of the things they want to know is when you're sitting at 28% of a fund balance, what plan are you in place? And we've talked about that. It was built into this year's budget. It's built into next year's budget. A repair reserve fund is coming from that. We have to show, and the state wanted to know that, and they acknowledged it on our behalf that yes, we have a plan in place to spend down that surplus
Send it down to what level?
to an acceptable level.
Which is?
Well, it depends on who you're asking in terms of, do you want the state answer or do you want my answer?
What our perspective, I don't care about the state perspective.
The state is saying 4%. Exactly. 4% is too low.
Exactly,
If,
I agree
if I would say probably more in the 8 to 10%
with you.
would be a good spot.
So they may have to slap your hand every now and then.
Exactly, but I
so
would
what?
feel truly more comfortable in the 8 to 10% range. 4% right now for us is not even $900,000.
Yes.
One major, whatever, into the building where we have to, grab $1 million and just like that. It's
Precisely.
gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So, but in the state, I think in the state, when the auditors, they recognize that.
They gotta do what they have to do, but you do what you have to do.
They would even say 4% is too low, but that's the threshold. And they're not slapping districts' hands at this point because they recognize that, but they also recognize that districts that were coming out of, 2 COVID years and budgets, weren't spent, and therefore a lot of districts have exceeded the fund balance by a sizable amount, and they're more interested in what's the plan,
The future.
what's your plan going forward? And hopefully, Tim and I, we've demonstrated that we do have a plan to have that spent down in the next few years. Say by within 3 to 5 years, it's going to be down to 8 to 10%.
Okay.
Questions on the revenue? Okay, the next one is basically looking at year-to-date expenses. So when you look at that, comparatively speaking, our salaries, a little $200,000 difference there. And you say, oh, that's good. Part of that is when you look at it, and why these numbers, because originally the numbers were our current salaries were well over $9 million is what we've spent. But when you throw in our ARP monies, that offset some of it. So, we're going to be tapping into our federal money this year to help offset salaries. We have every year we do an offset for our federal money, our special IDEA money. It's not part of the budgets, it's part of our special aid fund, and that gets moved over every year as well. Employee benefits, I mean, $121,000 increase, that's normal.
Also it is.
Yeah, yeah, $410,000 increase in contractual and BOCES. As Sarah would attest, it's when it comes to the needs of students, sometimes students have greater needs than other students,
Right.
and we have to accommodate, and that's where you're seeing, why that jump is, and we've been talking about that all year. And that's why we budget for these things. You can see equipment, we spent a little more on equipment than last year, which is normal. Our debt service, that's again where we figured it was going to be. That's no big surprise.
Yeah.
Going forward, it's going to be in that $1.5 million range. Special aid funds. Last year, we moved $26,000 over. That was actually, it was tied to the cafeteria fund. That's what it took to kind of balance the cafeteria funds. Well, haven't made the move yet, but we budgeted $215,000 in it. All $215,000 will get moved over. So that is an expense that's not shown right now, but it's going to, happen. So when you look at it in terms of what we've spent last year, comparatively speaking to this year, it's about $848,000 difference. Our budget actually was $20.9 million. What it was budgeted. If you looked at our revenue, we brought in $20.5 million. There's still more revenue that's going to come in. I can tell you that we still have about $500,000 of expenses that aren't in this as well. But that will be, within the next week or so when we move money to offset the cafeteria fund, which we knew we were going to do, to pay for all the meals. That was what was budgeted. We have the donation that's coming in, so we'll have offsets. And so at the end of the day, when you look at this, we're going to bring in more revenue than what we've expensed. I mean, that's a good year.
That's a good
Yeah. And it's not a $900,000 surplus, so the state would even say that's even better year because of that. We will probably have, $200,000 in terms of surplus funds. Not until, there's always the unknowns that come in at the end of the year. We have a couple of outstanding bills from other school districts that haven't come in yet to see what those are. Because of student placements and things like that. So again, that's just the nature of it. So when students leave our district and get put into other districts, the home school is responsible for their education.
Yep.
Therefore, we have a couple of students in various districts, and until we get those bills, can't really say. I know one is going to be anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000. We've been paying that for the last couple of years. That's not business, so, but all said and done, I feel good. That's good. Our revenue is exceeding our expenditures. I mean, it's good. Exactly. Questions on this budget comparison?
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, treasurer's report.
Treasury report, you'll see that's it's about the same as from month to month end. It's really, we have a good amount of money in our insured cash sweep, a little over $11 million.
Wow.
So that's there. And, one thing that this does not reflect, because it's end of May, we're always looking back. We did move money from this over the last couple of weeks to do the last payroll. A lot of, staff, they get the balloon payment, so they get their 5 paychecks all at once. We had a payroll last Friday of a little over $1.2 million. Typically, that's $270,000. But you're taking 5 payrolls for a good portion of the staff, and it's being all paid out. We had our bonds payment go out last week, a little over $1 million. So that's not reflected in our treasury reports in terms of cash. So but it's still pretty healthy. Can point out though, this is probably the lowest amount of outstanding checks that we've seen, $11,000.
Easy.
And I can tell you why. We didn't pay BOCES last month. I'd like to say it's because of the protest, but it wasn't, you know. That wasn't the reason why. We did pay our May and the June's getting paid. It was just in terms of time. But it reflects that we don't have a huge amount of outstanding checks because typically it's driven by the BOCES payment. We didn't make the new payments, but they have since gotten it. And I kind of get a eviction notice. So,
They have chainsaws.
that's right. Questions on the treasury reports?
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Tim, take it away. Superintendent's report.
Sounds good. And for an added bonus, my computer decided, so I'll be working off my phone. Little joke for the admin team who knows we have a long meeting today. So beat you to it, Dana. All right, it's a race. Yes. So in that note, lots to report on towards the end of the year, of course, and planning that's happening with regards to next year. So we were able to finalize our efforts on our task forces for the strategic plan today. The administrative team worked closely with our facilitators of the task force, Keith Clark and Amanda Cash, who were very helpful in providing some insight into what the innovation task force, the well-being task force, and the academic excellent task force is looking for as we move into year one of the strategic plan next year. And so for the board, the timing of where things go from here, PLC Associates, who we contracted with in March of last year, they will get ready for a draft publication. We'll present that to the core strategic team that started with the work in the mission and vision and our underlying goals. And then once that clears that group, then we're slated to present for your consideration and adoption at the August meeting. Everything going according to plan, that will set us up great for a start of the September school year. And little hints of the work that's happened with the strategic plan are sort of percolating daily. We have noticed some of the flags that are out front that sort of embedding some of those messages of our vision statement. If you've been to any events lately, Caleb Myhill has been videotaping everything in an effort to publicize some videos to help generate some enthusiasm in the community for the launch of the plan. We are in the process of starting the full service community schools grant. This is a grant that has a maximum award of $2.5 million over 5 years for programming that will support the academic, social, and emotional needs of students. So I submitted the letter of intent last week, and we have July and August to complete. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that some federal dollars fall within our proximity with regards to that. There's been myriad ceremonies towards commencement here this last week and certainly moving ahead. This morning's kindergarten graduation was utterly adorable in every way. It started off with our seniors coming down and running in the halls as is tradition. And then they quickly were bused to Main Street where they could get out and view the kindergartners in a car parade with their parents, a holdover from COVID that's found a place now in the ceremony. And then the students arrived to much fanfare at the school, and there was a slideshow and the elementary band presented. And there was refreshments in the outside area, but the whole thing was wonderful. So excellent job to the kindergarten instructors, to the elementary team, to Ms. Franklin, for all of that great work. Fifth grade celebration is tomorrow. And then Friday, we move towards the actual graduation ceremony for our seniors, which will hopefully be on the Oval. We're seeing 30% chance of rain. So Ms. Lindsay and I are watching closely and putting rabbit's feet where they need to go and such. So we're just going to hope that all works out. Tomorrow evening is baccalaureate, which will be at St. Agnes. So we're excited to see that happen at 6 o'clock. And last week we had the senior awards ceremony, which led to $111,000 worth of scholarships being distributed to our students, thanks to the generosity of our community, which is tremendous.
Yeah.
We had the 8th grade celebration. I was unable to attend. Mr. Cash was able to stand in my stead, and I'm told that the ceremony was excellent as always. So thank you to Patty Mayberry and Kaylee Taylor and Amanda Cash, Connie Haymaker, Emma Gosling, and Teresa Lindsay for all of their work. The month of June has been a nocturnal sort of month for Miss Lindsay, and we're really grateful for her dedication with regards to that. On the athletic fronts, I did put in my report, which is in the public portion, all of the awards that were issued to students and teams for spring sports. There are many. Our athletes did a tremendous job, but just some of those highlights. Our varsity baseball team, by now, I'm sure many of you are aware, went undefeated in the regular season. They played tremendously well. And PJ Colby was a Division II MVP, and Brian Brandis was the coach of the year. And for Brian to retire on that note was pretty exceptional. So we're certainly proud of that. In softball, they had a 3-9 season in league play. The team is young, and they're building on those skills, and they ultimately lost in the quarterfinals of this section. In track, we hosted 2 varsity and 2 modified meets. Andrew Scanio and Kai McKinnon both posted new school records in the 2-mile and steeplechase, and both performed very well at the state meet in Middletown. In girls track and field, we had a gold letter performance by Kai McKinnon. Most improved was Holly Aaronstone, and the sportsmanship award went to Maya Marshall. In boys tennis, our boys team finished 3rd in league play, and our doubles team, which was actually represented by Keene, who's playing on our team, they qualified for the state meet, and they came in 2nd sectional play. And in girls tennis, we had newer students participating, some for the first time. We had a lot of numbers, which was great. And it was great to see these students start to learn more of the skills associated with that. In golf, we won the CVAC League Championship. Brady Tremblay was the individual section champion. He dominated the field. Outstanding work with regards to that. And in lacrosse, our girls lost in the quarterfinals of sectionals, but both our boys and girls modified teams were undefeated this year. So a little shout out to Ms. Coffin in the crowd there. I know you want that celebrated. But all told, just an unbelievable effort on the part of our teams and our coaches, and certainly Mr. Burdick, who's hanging up his hat as athletic director at the end of this year, taking one of the rainiest springs this side of the Amazon and really figuring out how to actually compete. So kudos to him. And last but not least, in this aspect of the report, and go grab something if you need to, Karen. The LEAD organization, which is basically, it stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Thank you, Ms. Franklin, for holding me to that. We have been working on recertifying our status as a climate forward community. In 2018, the districts, along with the town of North Elba, the village, and Florida, all piled it together a variety of commitments that were going to make us a more climate forward community, for lack of a better word. That certification lapsed, and so we've since been working on recertifying that. And so the goal is for the certification process to take place over the next year, and for December of 2024 for that to be finalized. So the recertification efforts are being led by Tammy Morgan. She's our representative to the LEAD core team, but it's also composed of Mr. Wood, Nikki Corson, Dave Mayberry, Phil Barber, and myself. So good work in that area. I just thought I'd reference that because at our last meeting, we had a great presentation from Lily and Kira about the need to eliminate single-use plastic bottles, which is something that'll be added to the July policy agenda, and consider having a milk dispenser instead of carts to reduce our carbon waste. So lots of good things there. And I would love to say that these treats are in celebration of our climate forward status, but alas, they are not. That does not mean that we are not really trying to protect the ozone layer. But this is the last meeting of 2 of our storied board members here. Dan Marvin joined the board after considerable arm wringing and leveraging, I'm told, in 2017, and has served with distinction since that time. He was vice president appointed in 2018 and has maintained that mantle seeing through the transition of a longtime serving board president, Rick Preston, and in dealing with an upstart young superintendent and doing so with absolute gravitas and grace. Dan's knowledge of where the property lines are is something that I'm really gonna miss. He comes up all the time. I just can't say. But his insight as a father and as a husband of someone deeply respected in the school in the realm of special education, those are things, and as an alum of the district, that are assets that we could only hope to have in future board members. So for all of those things, Dan, thank you so much for your service. And we do have some things to present to you after I have an opportunity to speak with regards to Joan as well. So Joan had a brief stint on the board in 2011 and then rejoined in 2017 and has been with us ever since. Sure, if you canvassed the Lake Placid community and asked what portion of them had children that were brought up to varying degrees by Joan and by the Tiny Tykes family, you would get people raising their hands in enthusiastic vigor. And I am proud to say and fortunate to say that I'm amongst those. So today was my last day at Joan setting my son. And Joan is a wonderful person. And so I'm going to move to the less serious portion of the meeting so I can compose myself.
He did try to.
Yeah. That's a little baby. So this is a certificate. Let it be known that Joan Hallett Valentine has survived Hackett and Huckett and the Lake Placid Board of Education.
Here's that memory, here's.
Dan, let it be known that Dina Marva has also survived Hackett. So excellent. So big shoes, bigger hearts, and full of gratitude. So thank you so much for all you've done.
Thank you.
And I miss the dessert.
No, you didn't.
Any recommendations?
All good.
It's all good. Okay.
One of everything.
One of
Like
everything.
that.
That's right. The Buddha approach, the Zen approach.
All right, thank you, Tim. The next section is information for the board. You'll see a couple of letters, and reports in there. You'll also see some information about the graduation ceremony, as well as some. 5A was in consent. Brings us to personnel matters. 6A, recommended action, approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. 6B, appointment of director of pupil personnel, and 6C, teaching assistant appointment. Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Thank you, Ron. Do I have a second? Thank you, Doug. Any discussion, additions, subtractions? Divisions, multiplications?
As you can see, I'm having some technical issues.
I.
Want us to, just wait for a second?
Yeah.
What's easiest for you?
Well, just vote, because everything else is.
All those in favor, say aye.
I.
All those opposed?
Hit the motion.
Ron did, Doug second. So congratulations to Alexis Megdori with her appointment as teaching assistant at the middle high school. And also congratulations to our very own Sarah Allen with her appointment as director of pupil personnel services. We're just going to call that she's the DPPSD.
What's easier to say?
It's easier to say. Sarah will assist in training 2 co-CSE chairs in her new role and will be the lead administrator of all special education teachers and teaching assistants K through 12, as well as the counseling team ESL program. Thank you very much.
Sarah, you're a rock star.
Thank
We're
you.
fortunate to have you in this role. Well deserved.
Moving on up. Hold up the tongue, yeah.
That's the LPCSD.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so everything. Let's see, 7A, B, C, D, and E were all in consent. The consent agenda, that brings us to our second for the good of the cause. And we have any additional comments or letters? Emails?
No.
That brings us to linking goals with agenda items.
I like, part of, Tim's report with writing the grant for the expansion.
Community schools.
Yeah.
Which one is that linking to?
Students versus
Students.
foremost.
Any others? Karen? Brings us to the adjournment phase of the meeting. Next meeting location will be the reorganizational meeting, where you all have your chance at the gavel if you want. July 11th. Be that one.
In on Chiota.
Right.
Yeah, in the woods.
That gavel will be needed.
Over 3 days.
That will be for smashing mosquitoes. There. I think I'm gonna do it in the way. But I'll do it. Next is old agenda topics. You'll see civics and ongoing updates will be provided on how the district is promoting civic responsibility, as well as exit poll in the audience media. So that will be. No. Any new agenda topics?
I'd like to say one thing. I'm half sitting here, the yearbook, and which is wonderful. When I ran for office for this position a year ago, I heard a number of parents are very unhappy with the fact that the yearbook was not ready by the end of the school year, which prevented kids from making notes and having a number of people. So I'm very pleased that Brian Lasala got it done. I want to commend him for that.
So you're saying you're now resigning since you've come?
I've done what I promised I would do.
All right. Any new agenda topics? Okay. We have a proposed executive session. The recommended action and motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing the superintendent's evaluation. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. Do I have a second? We'll give it to you.
Your last.
And then,
Voting again.
yeah, and then are we voting now? Okay. Any discussion? Nope. If not, vote.
Seven, yes.
Everybody?